Next, we're going to hear from John Dillon. We have a question from a caller, but first,
did you know law-abiding gun shops and manufacturers had their credit card processing shut down because their vendors think guns are inappropriate? Well, shutting down businesses that support your constitutional right to self-defense is wrong, which is why we are so excited to have 365 Glacier Payments as a 10-ring partner. 365 Glacier Payments specializes in companies in the firearms industry. And if you have a business that accepts credit cards, give them a call today so you can enjoy the peace of mind that your account won't be shut down and also enjoy the best rates. Visit their website at 365glacierpayments.com and ask for a free account review. And if they can't beat your credit card processing rates, they'll pay you $100. All right, Michael, what are we doing next?
We're talking to Attorney John Dillon. First, I want to introduce Chris Cheng. How are you, man?
Hey, Chris.
I'm doing good.
Awesome. Well, let's give you a microphone.
Hey, I'm doing good. Happy to be here and excited to chat about all the things.
Yeah, awesome. Very, very cool. And you have some really cool things that we're going to talk about. But first, let's go to John Dillon, Attorney John Dillon, attorney extraordinaire.
Absolutely.
That's my word for the day.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I actually, I was at the dinner last night, and I won the silent auction for the RECOIL magazine auction with Chris Cheng's
really?
T-shirt. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, John.
I walked out without even checking to see if I won, and so I did win.
Congratulations.
What a guy.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that actually in the next segment. It's really, really cool. We talked about it last week on the phone, and we're going to get a little update from Chris on that. But that's cool. I didn't know you won that. Congratulations.
Yeah. First time ever I won at the gun prom.
And you probably only bought one ticket, right?
Well, no, it's a silent auction.
Oh, it's silent.
It's silent auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up taking me home in a form that was, maybe unanticipated.
I see how
That was the goal.
All right.
Alrighty,
So we have
there was a question.
on that note. Now he's all frazzled. Chris.
Yeah, really.
Oh, you can't frazzle me that easily.
Heck no, he's a lawyer.
Yeah, he's John Dillon, lawyer extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire. Okay, so here's the question. It came in. Actually, I said caller. It came in via email. Hello, my name is. I'm not going to say. I used to be a gun owner before I lost my rights in 2014. After the events the last 2 years, my wife has expressed interest in her buying and owning a gun here at the house. We're unsure if it's legally possible to do that. I asked around and pointed your direction, blah, blah, blah. So the question is, can my wife own and keep a gun at the house with me being a felon?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. And, unfortunately, it applies to a lot of families, couples, even roommates all over California. It's a little too easy to get a felony these days. So basically, and generally speaking, just because your spouse gets convicted of a felony, that does not mean that you lose your Second Amendment rights. So it is definitely possible. Theoretically, there's nothing against the spouse buying, purchasing, owning a gun and keeping the gun in the home. But the more practical aspect of it is it's actually a lot more difficult to stay within the bounds of the law because, if you do have a felony, you can't be in possession of a gun. And the law can interpret possession in very loose terms. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have it in your hand. It can be more akin to just having access to the gun. So if someone were to have a gun like the wife in this situation, it would have to be locked up in a DOJ approved safe at all times. The spouse with the felony could have no access to it, meaning they don't know the code to the safe. They have no ability to retrieve the gun in any way, shape, or form, and that would theoretically and technically be within the law. But again, practically, it's going to be a lot tougher. If you want a gun, be able to defend yourself in your home. A lot of people, especially people who don't have kids, they put it in the nightstand next to the bed if they need to retrieve it quickly, or they take your gun out of your safe because you're going to go to the range, so you put it in your range bag. at that point, it becomes a lot more difficult to stay within the bounds of law, especially if the person is, current with the felony is in the home with you. They sleep in the same bedroom as you do, and that's where your gun safe is. It's just makes it very difficult not to do something, unintentional that would, give that, felon access to that firearm. And there's two real criminal statutes you got to worry about here. It's one, which is felon in possession, which is if, the person with the felony has, possession of the gun in any way. That's another felony charge that could be really bad. The other one is actually criminal storage of a firearm. We have these laws in California, and a lot of people, when they bring up the criminal storage laws, it has, it's always in the context of children. You can't, leave a gun lying around and let a kid have access to it. But if you actually look at the letter of the law under that statute, it actually says children or prohibited persons. So if you, the owner of the gun, allow even the ability for this prohibited person to access the firearm, you're putting yourself in the way of some criminal liability there if anything ever goes wrong. So although it is possible, you have to be extraordinarily diligent in how the process of how the gun is stored, and if someone's in the house, like it never comes out, or your spouse has to leave. If you ever want to go to the gun range, they got to leave the house before you retrieve the gun from the safe, and then you can pack that up securely in the car and leave. So while it is possible, it is very hard practically not to run afoul of the law.
Hey, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to ask, if someone was a felon, right, and they did something, say, 10 years ago, and like you were saying, you don't have to murder someone to become a felon. It's easier than that. But is there any way that person, say they've been fined for the last 10 years, is there any way they can get their rights back? Or if they can, is that a difficult thing, or how does that work?
Well, there's basically two real ways in California to restore your firearm rights after a felony conviction. And it is highly dependent on the exact circumstances, what you were charged with. But in general, one, it would be what's called a 17B reduction. So it's a motion to the courts to reduce your conviction from, a felony to a misdemeanor. And the key language there is for all purposes. And under 17B reductions, you can restore rights. Only certain convictions are eligible for that, and there's a whole set of circumstances that apply that you got to figure out if you fall in line with all that. But that is one way, and then the other way is a governor's pardon, and that's it's a Hail Mary on those. I've worked with people who have done certificates of rehabilitation and applications for governor's pardons, but they're few and far between. It's really, once it goes in front of the desk, it's just a matter of if the governor at the time chooses to sign that pardon or not.
John, does that depend on the governor? Because some governors,
no doubt about it.
Some governors are pro guns, some governors are not pro guns. So would that be
something? Also, you get governors who are more willing to deal with criminal justice reform, or deal with accept the fact that someone can change their life years down the road after a felony conviction, and some who just are, hey, once a felon, always a felon. You're always going to be a bad person. So there's a lot of aspects that come into play, but that is truly the Hail Mary to get a governor's pardon. But the 17B reduction is the most typical way of getting
the easier route.
Qualify.
Easier
route.
Well,
so in California, there's a big push. California is mostly Democrats, and the Democrats are. They're kind of anti-felony. They part of their criminal justice reform agenda has kind of made them anti-felony, because if you're a felon, if you have a felony, it ruins your life basically. So they're trying to basically strip away consequences of being a felon, except when it comes to guns.
What?
In fact, they're going the other way around. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some misdemeanor gun stuff that basically you end up with some of the same consequences as if you were a felon, because it's gun related, right?
Oh yeah, one that sneaks up on a lot of people is the Federal Misdemeanor Domestic Violence Act. So if at any point in the past you were convicted of any type of misdemeanor domestic violence, you are prohibited for life. And a lot of people, maybe it's just due to the times, charges and convictions for misdemeanor domestic violence back in, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 40 years later, they've never been in trouble ever since then, but they try to buy a gun and they're prohibited. And I routinely explain to people, it's that misdemeanor conviction, 30 years ago, that was a lifetime prohibition. But there's any number of misdemeanors in California that don't even have to do with, a violent act that will lead to a 5, 10, or even lifetime prohibitions.
And that, G. Gordon Liddy used to, G. Gordon Liddy? He was the guy, his felony was the Nixon Watergate scandal, right? So he used to say on his radio show, he said, well, I'm a felon, so I can't own a gun, but Mrs. Liddy has quite the collection. That's what he used to say on there.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.